Victor Wembanyama makes more money sitting out with a shoulder injury than most people make in a decade. He's 22 years old, 7'4", and he's already built a financial setup that includes a 9-figure Nike shoe deal, a Louis Vuitton ambassadorship, real estate on 2 continents, and a supermax contract that could push his career earnings past $250 million before he turns 30. People online keep asking the same question. What does the guy actually do with all that money? So let's go through it. The contract, the brands, the investments, the house with the cryotherapy room, and the chess games in Washington Square Park. This is how Victor Wembanyama spends his millions. Let's start with the number that made this whole thing possible. San Antonio drafted him first overall in 2023, and he signed a 4-year $55,174,766 contract with the San Antonio Spurs, including $24,929,640 guaranteed, and an average annual salary of $13,793,692. That's the base. That's the floor. Everything else gets built on top of that. Break it down year by year, and you can watch the number climb. His annual breakdown stands at $12.16 million in 2023-24, $12.77 million in 2024-25, and $13.38 million in 2025-26. No bonuses tacked on, no hidden incentives, just a clean rookie scale deal, doing exactly what rookie scale deals do. In total, he's fully contracted for about $38.3 million through 2026-27, with $16.87 million projected for that final year. Here's the thing people miss when they hear $55 million. For a player of his caliber, that's actually a bargain bin number. Rookie deals are capped by the league no matter how good you are. That might seem surprisingly low for a player with his level of hype, but it's actually pretty normal. Rookie contracts in the NBA are capped under the league's collective bargaining agreement, which limits what even top draft picks can earn early in their careers. LeBron couldn't escape it. Zion couldn't escape it. Wemby couldn't either. So for 4 years, he was basically playing at a discount while doing things nobody his age had ever done on a basketball court. Then July hit, and everything changed. After the Spurs rode him all the way to the finals, he signed a 5-year, $252 million rookie-scale maximum contract extension with San Antonio, beginning after the 4th and final season of his original rookie contract and averaging roughly $50.4 million per year. Read that again. $50 million a year guaranteed. That's not a projection or a hypothetical. That's a signed deal. And here's a detail that says a lot about how he thinks about money. He didn't take the biggest number available. He reportedly declined the chance to include escalators that could have pushed the deal to around $303 million, effectively giving up about $50 million in potential salary flexibility so the Spurs could have more room to build around him. $50 million left on the table on purpose. Most people don't turn down $50, let alone $50 million. But he wanted the front office to have room to sign talent around him, because a max player on a bad roster still doesn't win anything. Now zoom out further, because this extension isn't even close to the ceiling. Analysts were tracking the trajectory before he even put pen to paper on the new deal. By July 1, 2026, he'd become eligible for a rookie extension worth over $300 million under the current CBA. And if he earns all NBA honors or wins MVP, that figure could rise to around $529 million. Some people watching his career from a distance are already talking about numbers that sound made up. Some analysts even believe he could eventually become the first NBA player to earn over $1 billion from playing contracts alone. Let that sink in for a second. $1 billion just from playing basketball, not counting a single sneaker deal or luxury fashion campaign. And this is a guy who, 3 seasons in, was already flipping the usual order of how NBA money works. Normally, your salary dwarfs your side income until you're a decade into your prime. Not with him. He's one of the only rookie-scale players in NBA history whose off-court income exceeds his NBA salary, with endorsement earnings likely in the $30 to $40 million plus range annually, a number the finals spotlight pushed even higher. There's also a quieter piece of the puzzle that most fans don't think about: where he actually lives. He plays and resides in Texas, and that matters more than people realize. This is especially possible because he plays and now lives in a state that does not levy an income tax, which saves him potentially 3 to 10% or more in pocketed money, giving him more compounding power and wealth-building potential. Compare that to a max player stuck in California or New York, watching a big chunk of every check disappear before it even hits the bank. Wemby doesn't have that problem. Every dollar of that $50 million a year extension works a little harder for him than it would somewhere else. So if you're trying to picture the base layer of how he spends and grows his money, this is it. A rookie deal that undersold his talent by design of the league rules, an extension that could have been bigger but wasn't because he wanted his team built out, a no-tax home state quietly compounding everything in the background, and a trajectory that people in the sports finance world are comparing to 9- and 10-figure milestones nobody his age has ever touched. And that's before we even get into the sneakers, because the contract is only one column in the ledger. The moment you start looking at what brands are paying him just to wear their clothes and put his face on a billboard, you start to understand why people say his real paycheck isn't coming from the Spurs at all. That's where we go next. The endorsement empire that's actually outpacing his NBA salary. If the rookie contract was the floor, the endorsements are the part of the house that keeps growing new rooms. And it started before he'd even played an NBA game. Go back to before the 2023 draft. Scouts were calling him a generational prospect, and his own camp was already negotiating like he was a proven star. Before he even took the court in an NBA game, his agents believed he would sign a shoe contract worth more than $100 million. For context on how big a claim that is, LeBron James received a 7-year, $90 million contract with Nike out of high school, still the biggest rookie shoe deal in history at the time, while Zion Williamson's $75 million deal in 2019 was the next highest. Wemby's camp was talking about beating both of those numbers before he'd blocked a single NBA shot. Nike had actually been in business with him for years already. He first signed with Nike during his professional career in France, and the multi-year footwear and apparel endorsement deal carried over into his early NBA career. That relationship has only deepened since. Early reporting had the Nike arrangement pegged in the range of a signature shoe deal estimated at $10 to $15 million annually. That number kept climbing as his profile grew, and this past summer it hit a new level entirely. San Antonio's superstar added another feather to his cap, a signature shoe after signing a long-term contract extension with Nike that includes a new signature shoe line, according to reporting from ESPN's Shams Charania. Nike released a video showcasing a VW logo for his initials, positioned just above the company's swoosh. That's the kind of branding real estate reserved for a small handful of athletes on the planet. A signature shoe with your own logo above the swoosh isn't a marketing bullet point. It's Nike telling you they think you're going to be selling sneakers for the next 20 years. Then there's the fashion side, which is a whole different kind of income stream. Two of France's biggest exports, one in sport, one in luxury, decided to team up. Louis Vuitton signed the Spurs rookie as an ambassador, and the brand didn't hold back on the language they used to describe it. The company said he was striving for excellence and with a perpetual honing of craft, joining Louis Vuitton on a journey of shared values and aligned ambitions, adding that like Louis Vuitton himself, the young athlete has blazed a trail. That partnership hasn't been a one-off photo shoot either. He's become a recurring face for the house. This past summer, he showed up at the label's Spring-Summer collection in Paris, and Louis Vuitton's own account described him with a nickname that stuck. The images showed the collection styled on him as the brand's house ambassador since 2024, shared ahead of a Tuesday night runway show on a Paris catwalk, with the brand calling him a global dandy. Crowds in the city weren't shy about it either. He was greeted by chants of Wemby in a Paris nightclub during the same trip. It's not just Nike and Louis Vuitton. He's built out a wider portfolio that reads like a checklist of categories a modern athlete brand is supposed to check off: sneakers, fashion, trading cards, video games, and even a beverage startup. Most of his net worth comes from his first few NBA seasons under his rookie contract, along with endorsement deals from Nike, Louis Vuitton, Fanatics, and NBA 2K. Fanatics has him in the trading card and memorabilia space, tapping straight into the collector economy that's exploded around him since his rookie season. 2K has him in their game every year, which by itself is a nice, quiet royalty stream that keeps paying out, as long as kids are picking him on a virtual roster. Add it all up, and the estimates put his outside income in serious territory. His endorsement deals were estimated to bring in $5 to $10 million each year in the earlier years of his career, but that number has moved fast. By the time he was leading the Spurs deep into a playoff run, one financial breakdown had him in a completely different bracket. His endorsement earnings were likely in the $30 to $40 million plus range annually, with the final spotlight pushing that even higher. And a separate breakdown backs up just how lopsided that ratio has become compared to his playing salary. What makes the financial snapshot remarkable is the ratio. His endorsement income more than doubles his playing salary, which tells you everything about the kind of global brand he's already become at 22 years old. Think about what that actually means in practice. A guy who's making roughly $13 to $17 million a year from the Spurs is pulling in 2-3 times that from companies that just want his face, his height, and his highlight reel attached to their logo. That's not pocket change from a jersey deal. That's a second, bigger paycheck running parallel to his basketball career, and it's the paycheck that's growing faster. There's also a smaller, quieter deal that doesn't get the headlines but tells you something about how deliberately he's picking partners. He's partnered with Rolex to curate exclusive marketing campaigns, collaborations that don't just build his brand image but are expected to contribute a recurring revenue of $400,000 annually. $400,000 a year almost sounds small next to a $100 million shoe deal, but it's a reminder that his endorsement strategy isn't just chasing the biggest checks. It's about stacking prestige brands, Nike, Louis Vuitton, Rolex, the same way a fashion house builds a portfolio brick by brick, each one reinforcing the others. So that's the second layer. A shoe deal that started as a rumor before he'd played a single NBA minute and turned into an actual signature line with his own logo. A luxury fashion ambassadorship with one of the most recognizable brands on the planet. A watch partnership, a card company, a video game royalty, and an overall endorsement income that, by some counts, has already pulled ahead of his NBA paycheck entirely. But brands paying him is only half the story. The more interesting question is what he does with the money once it lands in his account. Because unlike a lot of guys his age with sudden money, he's not just spending it. He's putting it to work. This is where the story shifts from how much is he making to what is he actually doing with it. And the picture that emerges is someone who's a lot more deliberate with a dollar than you'd expect from a 22-year-old who just signed a $250 million contract. Start with the investment that gets brought up most, Barcode. It's a hydration and sports drink company out of Los Angeles. And he didn't just slap his name on it for a check. He put actual money in. Barcode, a Los Angeles-based maker of a fitness drink for hydration, received an investment from him. And while financial details weren't disclosed, it marked his first known angel investment. The official investor records back this up in cold database terms. He's listed as an angel investor based in France, with one recorded investment, Barcode, part of an angel round 2 back in mid-2023. It's not a huge splashy fund, it's one company, picked specifically. And the fit makes sense once you think about it. His unique physique and training regimen likely resonated with Barcode's hydration and supplement focus. A 7'4" athlete whose entire career depends on his body holding up under an unusual amount of physical strain has a pretty obvious reason to care about hydration science. This wasn't a celebrity slapping a logo on a bottle. It was someone investing in a category directly tied to his own physical survival in the league. Forbes has flagged the same investment as part of his broader profile, noting it alongside another project that isn't financial at all, but says something about how he thinks about legacy. He's an investor in Barcode sports drinks and spearheaded an initiative to create a European-style fan seating section at the Spurs home arena. We'll come back to that fan section in a minute, because it turns out to be one of the more unusual ways he's chosen to spend his time and money. But it's worth noting here that even Forbes treats it as part of the same financial picture as his actual angel investment. That tells you the line between business decision and personal project gets blurry fast with him. Now, real estate. This is where you start to see two very different versions of how he spends. One rooted in home, one rooted in performance. On the French side, he's been quietly building a footprint back home. He's made substantial investments in French real estate, acquiring properties totaling approximately $1 million. That's not showy money. That's the kind of purchase a person makes when they're thinking about roots, not headlines. His focus appears balanced between ensuring long-term financial security and contributing to his homeland's economy. $1 million in property back in France, while he's living an ocean away, building a career in Texas, reads less like flexing and more like someone keeping a door open to the country he grew up in. Meanwhile, in San Antonio, the money gets spent very differently. And this is maybe the most revealing part of the whole financial picture. He didn't buy a mansion to show off. He built something closer to a private performance lab. He's invested in high-end real estate in the city, including a reportedly customized recovery property that features cryotherapy and hydrotherapy installations, custom-built furniture suited to his frame, and a private indoor court for training. Think about that combination for a second. Cryotherapy chambers, hydrotherapy setups, furniture literally built around the size of his own body, and a court in the house, so he never has to leave to get shots up. That's not lifestyle spending in the traditional athlete sense. There's no home theater, no bowling alley, no flex for the camera's garage. It's a building designed entirely around keeping a 7'4" frame functional for the next 15 years of professional basketball. And that's exactly how the people tracking his finances have started to frame it. These aren't just lifestyle purchases, they're investments in his physical longevity, which is ultimately his most valuable asset. That's a genuinely different mentality than the stereotype of a young athlete blowing a signing bonus on cars and jewelry. His single biggest personal asset is his own body, and he's spending money specifically to protect it. There's a broader financial identity that's been building underneath all of this too. Expanding his portfolio into investment opportunities reflects solid financial planning. And alongside his collaboration with luxury brands, he's building a diversified financial foundation that extends beyond his NBA earnings. Some reporting has flagged interest in areas outside real estate and drinks entirely. Beyond real estate, he's exploring profitable tech investments, aiming for up to $500,000 in yearly returns. $500,000 a year isn't life-changing money for someone on a $50 million a year contract, but it shows the instinct. Spread the money across categories. Don't let it all sit in one basket, and treat every dollar like it's supposed to be working somewhere. Put the whole picture together, and here's what you get. One angel investment picked specifically because it lines up with his body's needs. Roughly $1 million quietly parked in French property to keep a foothold in the country he's from. A customized recovery compound in Texas, built less like a mansion and more like a training facility with a bedroom attached, and scattered interest in tech investments aimed at slow, compounding returns rather than quick, flashy wins. It's a strange mix for someone this young. A little bit of caution, a little bit of ambition, and almost none of the impulsive spending you'd expect from someone who just got handed generational money in his early 20s. Which brings up the natural next question: if he's not blowing his money on flashy stuff, what does his actual day-to-day lifestyle look like? Because the answer is more unusual than most athlete profiles you've ever read. Here's where the story stops being about spreadsheets and starts being about how someone with this kind of money actually chooses to spend his time. And it turns out that's just as revealing as any bank statement. Start with the car and the apartment, because those are the baseline expectations for a young star with money. He does have them, but the numbers are almost restrained by NBA star standards. He currently resides in San Antonio, Texas, in a luxury apartment that costs an estimated $10,000 a month, and he also owns a luxury car worth $80,000. Compare that to some of his peers around the league dropping 7 figures on a single car, and $80,000 barely registers. A $10,000 a month apartment sounds like a lot until you remember he's on pace to earn $50 million a year. This is someone who could be living in a private compound with a 5-car garage, and instead he's in an apartment with a nice but not absurd price tag. One financial breakdown of his lifestyle actually put it plainly. He travels in style, often using premium accommodations during tours and games, invests in quality training facilities and recovery equipment, and prefers a balanced lifestyle focused on health and performance rather than excessive luxury. That last part is the theme running through basically everything he does off the court. Take the reading. This isn't a he owns some books for the photo situation. Teammates and reporters describe someone who's genuinely, constantly working through stacks of novels. He's frequently been spotted carrying books while arriving at and leaving games, and he's told teammates that he reads before every game. He's talked about it in his own words, too, describing how the travel schedule of an NBA season has actually pushed him to read more, not less. He once said he wondered how many books he'd read, adding that he thinks he's read even more than before. With all the traveling, teammates back this up directly. Spurs teammates corroborated the story, saying he's usually seen on team flights with his nose buried in a thick book. The genre says something too. Most athlete book lists lean toward business memoirs and motivational self-help. His doesn't. His reading habits don't follow the standard athlete bookshelf of business memoirs and motivational titles. Instead, the selection leans heavily toward speculative fiction, morally unstable worlds, and characters forced into systems larger than themselves. He's named Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series among his favorites, and has worked through the sprawling Wheel of Time saga. It got serious enough that veteran forward Harrison Barnes started an actual book club with him. When Barnes, another avid reader, first came to the Spurs, he and Wembanyama started a book club. That included a couple of other players until it eventually whittled down to just the two of them, with Barnes making sure to include books from his favorite genre, science fiction, and specifically Sanderson. It's become such a known part of his identity in San Antonio that the city's public library built an entire display around it. Right by the circulation desk of San Antonio's Central Library sits a section built around his favorite books, many nodding to his love for science fiction and fantasy literature. That's not something money buys. It's just how he chooses to spend the hours everyone else spends scrolling a phone. Then there's chess, which has become almost as much a part of his public persona as his jump shot. He's not just a casual fan of the game. He's actively out looking for matches wherever he goes. It's no secret he's a huge fan of chess. The Spurs star has even challenged fans to take him on in the board game at Washington Square Park in New York City. Other teams have picked up on it and started using it to needle him during warm-ups. The Chicago Bulls mascot, aware of his passion for the game, challenged him and his teammates to a match right in the middle of pre-game warm-ups, with him moving a piece on the board in the middle of layup lines. One report summed up just how central the game has become to his off-court identity. He's long been an avid chess enthusiast, on par with his other off-court interests, so a mid-morning excursion to challenge strangers in a park isn't much of a surprise anymore. But the single biggest thing he's poured his time, and reportedly his own resources into, isn't a book club or a chess match. It's the Jackals. This is the European-style supporter section he pushed to bring to the Spurs arena, and it's become far more than a marketing gimmick. He didn't just come up with the idea for the Spurs' new European-style fan section. He's made it a source of civic pride. The way it actually came together says a lot about how hands-on he is with things he cares about. He personally selected the people who'd lead it. Two friends drove 9 hours through the night after getting a text that they needed to report to the Spurs practice facility on a Sunday morning, where he was carrying an iPad and speaker and greeted the 7 captains he'd hand-selected to lead the project he hopes will change American sports fandom, the Jackals. This wasn't a project handed off to a marketing department and rubber-stamped by an athlete's name. He'd been running the show start to finish. He hosted the tryouts, sitting on a makeshift ice throne, and spent hours studying film to select the captains himself. After picking them, he didn't just email a congratulations. He FaceTimed the captains himself to offer them the role. And he was explicit that this wasn't a favor he was asking the franchise to do for him. He wanted to make it clear this wasn't just something he was asking the Spurs to do for him. This was his project. This was a part of his legacy. That's a genuinely unusual way for a 22-year-old superstar to spend his social capital. Most guys at his level would let the team's business office handle fan engagement while they focus on the next shoe drop. He treated building a fan culture, modeled on the ultras sections he grew up around in French and European sports, as something worth his personal hours, not just his money. Add the fashion runway appearances into this same bucket, because they're just as much a piece of how he spends his time as his money. Beyond the ambassador contract itself, he's shown up in the front row of runway shows, been mobbed by chanting crowds in Paris nightclubs, and become enough of a fixture in that world that a major fashion house is building marketing language specifically around him. So if you zoom out on this whole section, the apartment that's nice but not absurd, the $80,000 car, instead of a garage full of exotics, the stacks of fantasy novels, the chess challenges in public parks, and a supporter section he built from the ground up with his own hands and his own late nights. A pattern starts to form. This isn't someone treating his money and his time like a highlight reel for social media. It's someone who's oddly deliberate for his age, spending on longevity, on community, on things that don't necessarily trend but clearly matter to him. Which brings us to where all of this is actually headed, because the money conversation around him isn't close to finished. It's just getting started. Here's where all of this lands. Everything up to now: the rookie deal, the extension, the shoe contract, the angel investment, the recovery house, the book club, the Jackals, is really just the opening chapter of a much bigger financial story that's still being written in real time. Start with the shoe deal because it's the most recent domino to fall, and it changes the math on everything else. The signature line with his own logo isn't just a marketing moment. It's part of a long-term contract extension with Nike, meaning the company is betting on him for the next decade plus, not just the next few seasons. Signature shoes are where real sneaker money lives. Guys with their own line don't just get a royalty on sales, they get a piece of an entire product ecosystem that keeps generating income, whether or not they're actively playing that season. If his shoe takes off the way Nike clearly expects, that single deal alone could eventually dwarf everything else on this list combined. Then there's the extension math, which analysts are already treating as a floor rather than a ceiling. Remember, this is a guy who just signed for roughly $50 million a year and still turned down escalators that could have pushed the total higher. That's not the move of someone maximizing every dollar right now. It's the move of someone who believes the bigger paydays are still ahead, and the numbers being floated for those future paydays are almost absurd by any normal standard. If he earns all NBA honors or MVP, projections put a future deal as high as roughly $529 million, and some analysts even believe he could eventually become the first NBA player to earn over $1 billion from playing contracts alone. $1 billion, again, before you even count another shoe sale or fashion campaign. And that off-court number isn't standing still either. One financial breakdown laid out just how fast the compounding could get. Once you stack all his income streams, salary, endorsements, and the tax advantage of building his life in a no-income tax state together over the next several years, this is the real capital he retains from his rookie contract. Add in off-court sponsorships and endorsements, business ventures, and compound growth potential on his market investments, real estate appreciation, and other assets, and his total net earnings before age 23 are likely in the $60 to $70 million plus range. Before age 23, most people are still paying off student loans at that age. There's also a comparison worth sitting with. because it puts his ceiling into perspective using someone who's already lived it. Analysts tracking his trajectory have pointed to another two-way global superstar as the model for what full-scale off-court earning can look like. Once you're a proven MVP-caliber player with global appeal, he could also look into how Giannis was able to gross roughly $120 million in one calendar year, using his NBA contract earnings and brand name to invest and compound his wealth. That's the range people are now talking about for him once he's a few years further into his prime. A single year's earnings north of $100 million, salary and brand combined. None of this happens automatically, of course. It's tied directly to what happens on the court, and the injury history is the one thing hovering over every projection. The blood clot that ended one of his seasons early is a real medical situation that any team, any sponsor, and any insurance actuary has to factor into these long-range numbers. But it's worth noting that even in the middle of that setback, the brands didn't pull back. If anything, the Louis Vuitton campaigns, the Nike signature shoe talks, and the Supermax extension all either continued or accelerated during and after that stretch. The market's bet on him hasn't wavered, injury included. What's genuinely interesting, looking at the full picture, is how consistent his spending pattern has stayed even as the numbers around him have exploded. He hasn't gone from an $80,000 car to a fleet of exotics. He hasn't traded the recovery house for a beachfront compound. He's still the guy reading Sanderson novels on team flights, still challenging strangers to chess in public parks, still personally FaceTiming college kids to ask them to help build a fan section. He views as part of his legacy rather than a marketing checkbox. The money has scaled by orders of magnitude, from a $55 million rookie deal to a $252 million extension to shoe and fashion contracts that could eventually rival that number. But the way he actually lives hasn't moved much at all. That's arguably the most unusual thing about this whole story. Most athletes who go from unknown prospect to global brand in the span of 3 seasons show it. Bigger houses, bigger entourages, bigger cars, a visible shift in how they carry themselves. His shifts have mostly been invisible unless you go looking for them. A recovery property built for his body instead of his ego. A French property that keeps him tied to home instead of scattering him across 5 vacation houses. An angel investment picked because it lines up with hydration science his career depends on. And a supporter section he treats like a personal mission instead of a sponsorship activation. The Jackals are still growing. The Nike shoe still hasn't launched. The Supermax extension hasn't even kicked in yet. That's still years away, sitting behind the current deal. Whatever the recovery house in San Antonio looks like today, it'll probably look different in 5 years once more of that. Louis Vuitton and Nike money gets funneled back into it. And whatever his investment portfolio looks right now, with one confirmed angel deal and some early tech interest, is probably just the first page of a much longer list once the extension money starts landing. So if you're asking how Victor Wembanyama spends his millions, the honest answer right now is carefully, mostly quietly, and with an eye pointed a lot further down the road than most people his age ever bother to look. The contract's locked in, the shoe deal's signed, the recovery house is built, the Jackals have their captains, everything else, the billion-dollar projections, the next fashion campaign, the next chapter of that supporter section is still being written one season at a time.